All right, well, let's get started and we'll get it figured out because I know that some of you on here, you're here to hear about brand building and finding your voice and not about our technical difficulties. So hello, everybody. Hi, ladies. It's so good to see you. My name is Erika Brechtel. You all know me. For those who don't know me, I am a brand strategist, designer, builder. I've been doing this for 18 years. I work with mainly female founders. I absolutely love what I do, mainly because I love working with women. I find that women, 99% of them anyway, when we really think about how to make it better for everybody, right? And it's not so much about making the quick buck or being famous. And if that's your intention, then you're probably in the wrong session. But if your intention with us today is to learn more about how to tap into your uniqueness so that you can actually use it and amplify it and connect better with your audience and give better what you have to give, then you are in the right place. So we are going to be talking about finding your voice today. And the way this is going to work is as you can see, I've got these lovely ladies on here with me. And we are going to be talking about, first I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes or so about just sort of the brand essentials that I think every brand needs to know. So for some of you, you've heard me recently talk about this, so I apologize if it's a review material for you. But so we're going to be talking about the 4 brand essentials that every brand needs to know. We're going to be focusing on the 4th essential today, which is brand personality. And so that is really finding your voice. I'm going to invite speakers to talk a little bit. They've all taken this brand personality quiz already. So I'm going to invite each of them at the appropriate time to talk a little bit about how they use their brand personality with their businesses. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then because I know all of you, I know this information as well. So don't worry about it. I'll guide you through that. So the way that Hopin works, I'm not actually able to share a presentation or a screen. So you're just going to have to look at me while I talk. So I apologize for that. Normally I have a presentation and everything, but what I do have for you, for those of you who are joining us, if you would like to take the brand personality quiz, 12 different brand personalities later, you can get that on my website. Let me see if I can drop this in the chat. Hello. I copied it for myself so that I could just copy and paste it into the chat. You can go here to take the brand personality quiz. So when we get to that point, then you can figure out who you are as a brand personality. And you also have the information on the 12 different personalities for your reference later. Okay, so as I said, I introduced myself, but I would love for my fellow roundtable speakers to introduce themselves. So I'm gonna, and while you're speaking, you'll have to excuse me because Susan's still trying to get in. So I'm gonna you're introducing yourselves. But let's start with Brianna. Why don't you come on and tell us who you are, what you do, what your business is. And I know you because you were one of my UCLA mentees. Oh, here's
hello. All right. Well, hi everyone. My name is Brianna. Hello. So I am a personal trainer. I mainly train women. So I'm a personal trainer all online, especially because of all of COVID and stuff. And I'm also a group trainer. So my focus is essentially getting women to feel empowered in their bodies. And not only physically do I train my women to get strong, but also mentally too, because they go hand in hand. So it's all about, training all of these business-like ladies that y'all are grinding in your businesses, but also on yourself. So I'm thankful to be able to give that. My name is Bree, and I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Great, thank you. How about Monica?
Hi everyone, my name is Monica Shulman. I'm a contemporary artist and photographer.
Uh-oh. Monica, I think you're paused. There you go. Yay!
Sorry about that. photographer based in the Lower Hudson Valley. Erika actually helped me a few years ago when I was rebranding. At the time, I had been working only as a photographer, and I was introducing my paintings basically to the world because even the people who knew me didn't know that I was really a painter. And I work with galleries, art dealers. I've had my work everywhere from the Academy of Arts and Letters in New York to other smaller galleries all across the U.S. and abroad. And I recently became a selected artist on Cherish, and I'm working on that. And I do a few different things, and I talk a lot about my shift in careers as I'm a former corporate finance lawyer, and a lot of what I did as an attorney sort of informs my business now. So I definitely am a left brain, right brain person, and I started from scratch. So building up my brand as an artist really started from I would say even below the bottom, all the way up. And Erika really helped me to hone my voice. And I really have learned a lot in the last 6 years since I've rebranded myself and my business.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. All right, Seda and Amanda.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Seda. I'm one of the co-founders of SS Beauty, which is a farm-to-beauty brand. We make all natural and organic products rooted in traditions from around the world. My background is Turkish. And so I, grew up with Turkish grandparents, Turkish parents. And so they obviously really influenced my taste and everything like that. And so when Amanda and I were building this brand, Erika really helped us, I think, formulate our thoughts. Not only did she help us create a beautiful brand, and she even came up with the name, which is a Turkish name for real. She helped us realize that all of the products that we were actually developing were rooted in the traditions of our ancestors.
Yeah, I'm Amanda. I'm the other co-founder for SS Beauty. My background is in chemistry, so I'm a chemist and cosmetic scientist. And yeah, Erika's helped us, find the messaging, help us build a beautiful website and our social media.
Thank you.
Great.
Nice to meet all of you.
I think most of you have the little holiday card that I sent you with their sanitizer in it. So they're all very familiar with your brand.
Awesome. Let us know what you think.
How much I'm obsessed with your product.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay, how about Janet? So nice to see you. I worked with you for at least a decade, right?
Yes, at least a decade. I'm a big fan of Erika's, as you could tell, working with her year to year on multiple different projects, actually. Nice to meet you all. So nice to be with a group of women, and women that I get to meet for the first time. So I pretty much grew up in the shoe industry since I was 4 years old. My parents started a shoe company, and they had a brand, Primo Royale, that sold to Magnum, Bullocks, all those stores that are unfortunately not around. It was leather goods, and we had imported from Taiwan. Long story short, things had changed when all those companies went out of business. We're kind of experiencing that now. But we started doing vegan leather shoes, what we call PU, and we started working with brands from Iconic's brand group. So we did not have to worry about branding or anything during my parents' time. And we did really well. We had Mud Footwear, Bongo, those kind of names. But when we decided to pivot, we had to start our own brand, which is Jelly Pop Shoes and Evolution Design Lab, a new company. And that's where Erika really helped me get educated about branding and marketing, which takes so much work, and I'm so thankful for her. And actually, we're pivoting again and just launched our e-commerce page yesterday on International Women's Day. So I'm actually meeting Erika and another lady she introduced me to. So I'm very grateful to be here and meet all of you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Janet. Marisa, hello. So good to see your face.
I'm hoping I'm unmuting myself. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Well, my name is, I don't even know where to begin, honestly, but my name is Marisa Perry. I have a jewelry design firm and a retail store in New York City's West Village.
It's gorgeous if you haven't seen it.
Well, now my website's gorgeous because of Erika. But I do have to say, and I mean, I have a similar story to you all. Erika helps me with my branding and helped me find my voice and what I was trying to communicate. And moreover, and what I value the most is, I mean, I kind of had my voice. I have a certain sense of style and a certain aesthetic I wanted to communicate. And I was just really having a hard time translating that onto a digital medium like a website. How do I make my website look like my jewelry, look like my store, look like my style? I was struggling and I struggled for a painful, 18 years until I was able to get Erika. And now my Instagram and my everything is cohesive. It all has a cohesive look that really represents my brand, and my brand is in my name, Marisa Perry. So it's really a spin-off on me, even though the jewelry is actually designed by my husband. The branding and how the store looks and how the brand is perceived is really my job. And thanks to Erika, I was actually able to do it well now. And I struggled for many years, and it probably cost me a little money to not have had it earlier. So about that soon.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for all of your introductions to be about me. I apologize. I know I'm the common thread, but thank you. Thank you all. Very kind words. I think you are all amazing women, and that's why I wanted you to be here with me today, and because you understand how important it is to know who you are as a brand before you can go out there and really use that, right, and use your voice and amplify your voice. So thank you so much, Marisa. Heather, what about you? Hi, Heather, also in NYC. And
I have to excuse myself for 1 minute. The dog is crying at the door, and I really prepared for this. I'll be right back.
Sure. Hi, Heather. And you, Marisa, when I did the New York City masterclass, which before pre-COVID.
Yes. She is still just as hilarious as she was then. So it's great to see her again. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Koziak. I am the founder of Launch Studio Consulting. It's a consulting business for small businesses. And it really focuses on kind of the intersection of marketing and product for launches. So I've kind of focused on the 1 to 200 employee size business. And we work on launching entirely new businesses with founders, all the way to launching new products in an established business, but they're entering a new market or it's a new product, things like that. So I've had the pleasure of working with Erika with my clients. And seeing her magic in action firsthand that way. And then also we're working on a little branding project for my company. So 2 ways there, but very happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Fanny, I think there's something going on with your video I can see, but we can, if you unmute, I'm sure we can hear you.
Hey, do you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hey, how are you?
Great. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Fanny Zigjohn. I am an interior designer. I am still working with Erika to work on my own story, tell my own story with my brand. I think, just coming on here, amplifying your voice is pretty major for me because I tend to hide. But yeah, I've been working with Erika to really define my own story, because that's kind of what I do for everyone else with interior design, really help everybody tell their story through their interiors. So it's been an interesting process.
And I just want to tell everybody, so Fanny, her one-word intention, which I think a lot of you have worked with you have done that exercise as well. Her one-word intention here is, so that is why she's like, well, how can I say no? You've invited me to this. Congrats to you, Fanny,
Thank you.
for actually activating that intention. And thank you so much. So you may have heard, so Fanny's been around. She has Home on the Runway. So I don't know if all of you know, but she was one of the first home decor Instagram accounts. that really curated beautiful interiors. And so she's kind of humble about that, but that she is the woman behind Home on the Runway. And she's taken a kind of a pause from that, and we're sort of rebranding her. And I'm so excited about your new brand and your new site, which is under development now. It's gorgeous. So excited. All right. Thank you, Fanny. Hi, Susan. I'm so glad you were able to log on. Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Erika. So nice to meet all of you. You're also like creative and fabulous. So I feel really privileged to be here in the same room with all of you. So unlike all of you, I haven't worked one-to-one with Erika, but she is going to be coming into my program and being her expert self. And, she's going to be inspiring my people. So just a little background on me. I'm Susan, chief storyteller, business advisor, and growth expert. And I work with visionaries, innovators, CEOs, women like you, service providers who confidently want to scale their ideas and businesses into successful brands and using the stories and skills and experience they already have. So I work with a lot of baby boomers, women who are kind of in the next what's next generation. And I help them, I show them how those skills, how they can automate them and monetize them in a really impactful way. I'm also a mom to 3 man children who keep me on my toes. And I love dark chocolate, especially C's dark almonds. And if you're hungry, I could feed you because my love language is feeding others. So my program is, I've been working one-to-one with my clients for the past 12 years. I had a big lifestyle brand before that, but over the past couple of years, I've pivoted that. I still work one-to-one, but I've pivoted into like group programs, and I use my proprietary 5-stage framework in what are my groups called the Power of the Pivot Collective experience. And it's basically the same method I do one-to-one, but we're doing it together. And it's really powerful because, as we all know, as we're all sitting here today, there are learning and teaching moments in everything that we do. And especially when women come together, we just, kind of rock the room. So, and I've just started a mentorship program for young girls who are aging out of the foster care system and they don't have a lot of resources. So I'm going to be using this same method with them in a softer way. And let's see what else. I also work with corporations and bring this program into corporations, which is really fun. Lastly, Jeanette, Bullocks and I Magnum were my jam. That's where I grew up with my girlfriends. Like, we hung out at those 2 stores. So the fact that you mentioned those, I totally connected with you.
Yeah, I know. I saw you nodding your head.
Yeah.
Like, yes,
No, Sherman Oaks Fashion Square, man, 70s. Yeah. That was me hanging out. Yeah. So I dig that. So thank you, Erika. This is awesome.
Great, wonderful. And if all of you want to drop in either your website or your Instagram or whatever you want to share into the chat so everyone can check you out and follow you, that would be great. And to everybody in the audience, as I speak, I'm going to be talking about a lot of stuff. If you have questions, also drop them in the chat, because at the end, I'm going to look through the questions and see what I can answer for you. So, okay, here we go. Let's get started. So as I mentioned, we are focusing on brand personality today, but before I get into that, I'm going to be talking about some of the brand essentials that every brand needs to know before we can go out there and market ourselves. And I just wanted to also drop in the chat for you information. You can furiously take if you want, but I also put this information into a handy PDF that it's erikabrechtel.com/start-here if you want to grab that there. Okay, so let's get into it. The 4 brand essentials first, and this is what I call the 4 Ps. It's your people, your purpose, your positioning, and your personality. We're going to be focusing mainly on the 4th one, which is personality today. But just to cover our bases, make sure we're definitely including the 3 other Ps, because they are all very important in terms of finding your voice. The first one is your people, right? So this is really, when we're thinking about voice especially, who are you actually speaking to? Right, and a lot of times you'll have more than one audience. So for example, a nonprofit, right, will have their membership that they're speaking to, but also their donors or their contributors. So a lot of times you've got more than one audience, and you want to think of them, yes, in terms of just demographics, who they are, but really try to get to know them on an emotional level, on a deeper emotional level. So what are their pain points? What are their needs? What are they really looking for? What is it that's going to make them happy? Because this is really important for us to know, because 94% of consumers say they buy from brands they are emotionally connected with. So we need to get to know our people, right, on an emotional level. And also when I say people, that could also mean your internal team. So like Marisa and Jenna, you know this very well. Like you are running an organization of many employees, right? So part of that audience that you have to serve are your team members too. So this is the first P, very important. And a lot of times I find too, for example, I have another client who's an interior designer, and we say she has a hire audience versus an inspire audience, right? So she has the audience of her multi-million-dollar home clients, interior design clients, but then she has this other audience that she's sort of inspiring with her style and everything out there on social media. So we have two different audiences speaking to, and she's thinking especially about like digital marketing, right? Amplifying her voice out there. She's really thinking about obviously the client, the hire audience versus the inspire audience in terms of moving her business forward. Okay, so that's P, your people. The next P is your purpose, right? So we've already thought about maybe who we're speaking to. Now we want to think about what are we speaking for? Like what is the whole point of what you're doing, right? And as I said, if we know that 94% of consumers need to feel emotionally connected to a brand to purchase from them, I always ask the question, are you emotionally connected to your own brand? Because I find a lot of times when I'm working with clients, especially those who have been doing this for a long time, they sort of lose that love and feeling along the way. So we want to make sure, even when you start to feel a little exhausted and like, oh, I'm putting so much energy into this, maybe you've lost that loving feeling along the way as well. So really reconnect with why you're doing this. Like, what is the whole point? What is the whole purpose behind why you're doing this? A lot of times it's going to be around the people, right? It's going to be who you're trying to help and who you're trying to serve. And I would highly recommend, and those of you who have done strategy work with me, you know, you've seen this already, but I would highly recommend for those in our audience to watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk. That's S-I-N-E-K. His TED Talk, it's called How Great Leaders Inspire Action. It's from 2009, so it's kind of, the references are old, but the information in his TED Talk is very relevant. It's typically, you know, his philosophy is called Start with the Why. But it's this whole idea of how we emotionally connect with people is when we talk about the why behind what we're doing and not the what, right? And there is sort of listening. Marisa has her hand up. Yes? Wait, you're on mute. Wait.
I do have a question. I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to be clear on this before we move forward. So, because I've had your brand, a class similar to this with you before. Yes, part of my purpose is really taking care of people so that they have a trustworthy source and I can protect them from getting, you know, taken in a jewelry aspect. Or I love spreading the love. I'm in the bridal business and that's really fun. So that's a purpose. But also one of my main purposes and drives that I am really in love with is building a brand. So is that like not the esoteric answer that you're looking for? Can I say, yeah, one of my purposes is to build a brand, even though my brand is, what's encompassed in building my brand is also these other elements. Which part are you kind of looking for?
I'd say all of it, whatever lights you up, because that's how you know that you've hit the mark, right? Yeah. Again, that emotional connection. So that gets you excited. Building a brand gets you excited. But there's probably reasons why you like to build a brand, right? Because you like to see the impact that it has on people. You like to see the impact that you are perhaps able to leave behind. And that's a really big part of branding that I like to talk about too.
But I often don't even think of the end game. I actually just really love the challenge because it's so challenging, and it's like a challenge that I'm really into, and I can't explain why.
Well, that's great, and that's a huge reason why you continue to work for yourself and build out your brand is because you have that fire and that drive behind you, right? So it's a big part of your purpose. Yes, absolutely. So I understand what you're saying about esoteric. However, it is just about lighting that spark within yourself too, right? And so because you want to make sure that you're emotionally connected with your brand and that you feel the fire and you feel lit up and happy when you're working on it. And so sometimes, I mean, a lot of you already have this and you know why you do what you do. But clients or who came to my master classes who maybe had trouble with this, you know, you can think of a very contrasting question is like, what gets you upset? You know, who in the world or out there, when you see something, does it really upset you? And sometimes that contrast helps you identify with what it is that is important to you and what you want to be a part of. And with purpose, you always want to kind of think big, right? It's kind of that big goal. You don't want to be too specific about it. And I'll give you an example. And a lot of you have heard this, we used this example before, but Elon Musk, whom we all know, and you know, and if you're not on Twitter, he's you know, vocal on Twitter, he's opinionated on Twitter, but if you have seen him around, you know, he can, if you did think he's kind of this crazy billionaire, which he might be. But his brand, Spacex, is a great example of, you know, he has his personal brand. And if you didn't know too much about Spacex, you just heard a billionaire that likes to crash rockets or maybe tweet about Bitcoin, right? But the purpose behind Spacex for him is to make human life multiplanetary. So once you understand that that's sort of his big purpose goal with that particular company, that is a why that you can really get behind, right? And which, again, like gets you excited. And so he's aligning with the right audience in that way, with that particular company, with that particular purpose. Because anyone who's like, yeah, I can get behind that, all of a sudden you're speaking to the right people and for the right cause or the right reason. So that's the second piece. So as we said, the first P is people. Second P is purpose. The third P is positioning. So this is how are you actually speaking, right? Versus competition. I don't want to use the word competition because it's aggressive. Let's say peers, your peers. So this is all about really identifying with what makes you unique, not just in terms of like the features and benefits off of the box, right? In terms of what you're actually putting out there in the world. But again, that emotional connection piece. How are you actually not only making your audience's day better, but how are you making their lives better? And this is going to have more of that lasting effect. That's where we're going to be connecting with that part of the brain that influences their behavior. So what I do with my clients typically is we break it down. So we look at sort of the shared audience that we have with our competitors or our peers, right? So if you looked at your people already, you should know who they are. What are their needs? What are they really looking for? You look at your competitors or your peers and you look at how are they serving that audience? What are they doing successfully? And maybe what are they not doing so well? What are they actually missing? And I've done this exercise with many of you and you've been able to see, oh gosh, actually, yeah, like this particular brand is really well known for this, doing this really. You kind of break it down that way. And then from there, you can really look at those holes perhaps that you can fill. But also, again, it's the general just sort of features and benefits of what you are accomplishing to satisfy, you know, particular service or to create that product, sort of that customer satisfaction. But then also looking at that deeper connection piece and how are you actually making your customers or your clients' lives better through what you do uniquely. So that's the positioning piece. And then the last piece is this we're talking about today is the personality. So not only how are you speaking uniquely, but how are you speaking authentically to who you are as a brand? And I think especially as women, we tend to want to be everything to everyone, right? And so that's sometimes it's hard for us to kind of hone in and maybe just accept who we are and really speak authentically to that and let go of the pieces that we're not. So I'm totally okay with the fact that I'm not super rebellious and I'm not super funny, and that's okay. Like I don't have to try to be those things, and I can really be who I am. And so this piece that we're going to be talking about today is super fun. And again, if you haven't taken the brand personality quiz for those of you in the audience. I did drop that in the chat at the beginning of the chat. It's erikabrechtel.com/brand-personality. That quiz. Now, all the ladies here, you've taken the quiz, correct? And so we can, okay. So I'm just going to go through. So there are 12 brand personalities. And so what I'm going to do is first, where you had those adjectives circled, just so that I can see if I was wrong. I think I know pretty well. And then as I go through each of the personalities, I'll ask you some questions, those of you whom I think, would have fantastic.
Erika, can I ask you a quick question? What if I was I was heavy on one, but I kind of had two?
That is a fabulous question, because I want to make clear.
Okay.
We typically have more than one, right? So we usually have a dominant personality, but we definitely have some accents. I have 3 that I find is pretty consistent for me, right? And so I know how, is that for you too, Monica? You've got 3? Yeah. So, and that's really common. Marissa has 5. And so, well, and we and a lot of people are able to group them together after you kind of hear what these 12 are. So, all right. So let's see. If you go to that link, you can download the brand personality quiz. There are 12 brand personalities. We're going to go through each one of them, and I'm going to explain to you what they are and some suggestions on how you can use your personality once you find it, how you can use that in your branding, in your marketing, to make sure that you are staying just true to who you are and aligning with the right audience in that way. Okay, so with a show of hands, how many of you on my panel have most of your adjectives, or maybe in your top 3, in the number 1 category? I do. Heather, Brianna, oh, a lot of us. Okay, great. Okay. All right, how about number 2?
Hold on one second, because I was looking at all of the ones that fit me, but I didn't necessarily do a count of how many of those elements within each one apply. And I want to go back to your email with that attachment. Does anybody have a quick, I'm looking through a million emails right now to find that. Does anyone have a quick way to find that one particular email?
Maybe search March 9th.
Ah, perfect. Okay, hold on.
Uh-huh. Marissa, I think, I know that you've got a lot of the personalities, but I don't think number 2. Number 2, who's the number 2? Amanda? I think you're number 2. Heather, you had some in number 2, didn't you? I think you had a lot of adjectives in number 2. Okay. How about number 3? Who has? All right, number 3. I'm a number 3 as well.
All of them.
How about a number 4? Janet, I think you're. Oh, Brianna. Yeah, that makes sense.
All of them.
Okay, number 5. I know the ladies who are I knew that. Okay. Oh, I love it. Wow. Okay.
All of them.
Some surprises. Number 6.
No.
6s. Okay. We got 2 6s. Great. Fanny, you're a 6 as well.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. Number 7. Any 7s? Because this was one. Oh, good. Because this was one category that I was like, wait, do we have anyone here? Okay, great.
I would say that I am those things, but I don't necessarily say that my brand would be perceived that way.
Yeah, I would say the same thing about you too, Marissa, because I had you, I wrote you down for that one. Okay, number 8.
I wouldn't say I communicate that within my brand, but I'm that way. But go ahead.
Who's in number 8? I have a lot of number 8 in me. Heather, I think you do too. Yeah, Brianna, that makes sense. All right. Number 9, any 9s? Monica? Oh, I love it. Seda too. Okay, what about 10?
Definitely.
10. I would say most of us are in the 10, right? I don't think that that's a strong personality for me, but it makes sense. And then last one, I didn't have anyone on here, so I hope there's at least one of you. Number 12.
Erika, that's a total personality for you. Trustworthy, stable, loyal, dependable, and humble. Absolutely. I wish you would almost be less humble. So
thank you.
11 as well for us.
Oh yeah, 11. Okay, so we had 10, we had 11. Sorry, did I skip one? Sorry, 10, 11, and 12. Any 12s?
Me too.
Oh, really? How fun. Okay, great. Okay, so let's start with number 1 then. And for those of you in the audience, if you are able to get that brand personality quiz and take it for yourself, or you can just follow along as I go through each one of these. Number 1 is the guide. So guide brands are people like myself, right? Or people like Susan, I think is a good example. She's a coach. I mean, it's part of what she does. So guide brands, we are typically experts in our fields who really love sharing what we know. And that's obviously a big part of what I do and why I'm here today. So with guide brands, if you find a guide brand, and some good examples are like any thought leader, authors, right? TED Talk speakers are also a good example of guide brands. It's all about, we want to make sure that we are establishing our credibility with you. We want you to trust the information that we're giving you. So for example, at the beginning of this presentation, I introduced myself with that very important piece of, I've been doing this for 18 years. So I'm showing you right away, like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I'm an expert in my field, right? And so it's all about sort of establishing how you're an expert as much as you can. So if you go to my website, you'll see a lot of logos of maybe press features that I've been in over the years, or organizations that I've spoken for, or even associations and organizations that I have committed to being a member of, because I'm trying to show you this is important to me. This is what I'm about. So as a guide brand, you're all about empowering and educating others, right? So when you're thinking about how you can use that personality type, think about that with your content. Think about that with what you're putting out into the world constantly, right? And it's got to be aligned with that piece. And so that for me is a really important, obviously a really important part of what I do is being a guide brand. So who else did we have as a guide? So Susan, I would like to bring you up on the stage to talk about a bit, because for example, I can think of at least 3 different ways that you use the guide personality in what you do, one of which I am going to be participating with you on Thursday. So maybe you could talk to and share how you use guide for your work.
Okay, so I come across a lot of really amazing women in my life, and again, as I mentioned before, I really think there's teaching and learning moments in every relationship, in everything that we do. And so part of what I do is I'm a lot, Erika and I are very aligned, like her messaging and her voice is a lot of my same voice, except I don't have the mechanics and the ability and capability like Erika to get on the computer and take from what's in my head onto the paper. And that's why I need people like Erika in my life, because I have so much in my head. I'm such a visionary that I need people like her to actualize it and implement it for me and collaborate. And so I'm a collaborator. So I started a podcast. It's going to launch next month, and I'm bringing on women like Erika, who are experts in their field, who do amplify their voice and also complement what I'm building and what I'm doing and how I create. And so not only is feeding others my love language, but creating is another one of my love language. And whether I'm baking a batch of cookies or doodling in my journal or creating, helping somebody amplify their life and take their life to the next level of where they want to go, because maybe they've been stuck or they've been in a dark place or they've been out of the work world or they just want to pivot. You know, I do that like Erika does that. And I really love to help people. I can't help myself. You know, it's like, it's a blessing and a curse. And I'll tell you a quick little story and then I'll shut up. But I grew up here. I'm a Angelino, born and raised. And about a year and a half ago, a bunch of us from high school got together for dinner, and they weren't my people really. They weren't my group, but I was connected to a few people in the group. And my friend that was hosting it basically said to her friend who I knew, she said, beware, you're going to start talking to Susan and she's going to ask you all these questions. And before you know it, you're going to tell her your whole life story without even knowing it. And so at the end of the night, I left and Kathy went up to Margie and said, oh my God, I just told Susan my whole life story and I didn't even realize it. And it felt so good and it felt so comforting. And she really wanted to know. And that's really who I am at my core. I'm a details person. I got to know all the stuff and then I can see the vision. So
yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm also thinking you have a Facebook group, a private group, right?
Yes.
You've got a podcast.
Yes.
And you have your online courses.
Yes.
So these are all the ways in which you utilize.
Yes. And again, I'm sorry.
Help.
Exactly. Like my one-to-one is very exclusive. And I was tired of being exclusive because it's got a high ticket and I really want to help as many people as I can. So I launched these groups, the Pivot Collective Experience, and it's an extension of my one-to-one. And I do have a private Facebook group that I'm not super active in right now, but I'm getting more active, but I am getting ready to relaunch a new group. I have one ending, so I'm launching one at the end of the month. And it really is an amazing way for all of us women to help one another. I'm there as the guide, as the teacher, as the mentor, for lack of a better word, and taking the ego out of it. But really, when you're in a situation together, you just learn so much. And I have to say, I like it so much more than the one-to-one. It's really powerful. It's really fun. It's been life-changing for me. And Erika, you mentioned something, again, our philosophy and our program, the way we think is very, very similar. But you said something like, I want these women to tap into what their hidden talents and what's already there and light a fire under their butt, right? And get them really motivated. And so I have a couple clients right now. We were talking last week in my group, and they basically what they said was, I'm now so in love with myself. Like I haven't been in love with myself for so long. And so I think as a guide or a mentor, I mean, I think that's really all we can really ask for, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that is such a good point with guides. So what I love about this brand personality quiz, and I'm so glad you brought that up, is because it's not just about business brands, right? It's about personal, yourself as well. And so even Seda and Amanda, they're co-founders, but they know who they are as personalities. So they understand and appreciate each other. You know, what resonates with us, what we're good at, maybe what we're not so good at, right? And so with guides, for sure, I mean, we also like to know that the information that we're giving means something to somebody, right? And has an impact. So if you have a guide in your life or a mentor, for example, you know, make sure that you're telling. Thank you so much, Susan.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're a great example as a brand.
Aw, thanks.
Okay, let's move on to number 2, the intellectual brands. So those of you who have in the audience who have circled, most of your actives in group number 2, you love facts and figures, right? You love information and you're all about data and metrics. And so that's kind of what you thrive on. I am not a number 2. So I'm much more about feeling and emotion. Number 2 brands, intellectual brands, are very much about facts and figures and numbers. And that is how they prove their points, right? That's how they prove the value of their ideas. And so, Amanda, I know that you are an intellectual brand, and I would love to hear, I mean, first of all, you're a chemist and a cosmetic scientist, so it makes sense that you would naturally gravitate towards this particular brand personality. Maybe you could talk to about you in SS Beauty.
Sure. Like, we have the same goal of that we want to make beautiful products and make people happy, good for you products, and using really innovative ingredients. So one of the many ways we do to get there is with the ingredients that we choose and using data to make sure that the ingredients we choose are healthy, that they're good for you, and they're coming from good sources. And the only way we can do that is with the facts, with the science, with the chemistry that we learned a long time ago. It's been a while since we've been in college, but using that information in order to arm ourselves for information for our customers as well. But again, it's towards the same goal, but we had different brand personalities and approaches to get there.
Yeah, and then on your website and in your social, we really try to make sure that we're getting out that scientific information and constantly showing people the science behind what you're doing, right? The actual, that you've done your research, basically, is what it's all about, right? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and working in the industry like for like 10 to 15 years, it's using that information as well for our brand.
Oh, that's great. Did we have any other intellectual brands? I don't know. I thought Heather, maybe you might be, but no. Yeah, Heather, you want to share a little bit about, because I know I've worked with you. You definitely are about the metrics and the success of your clients and making sure that, you know, you're there for them. Maybe you could talk a little bit about intellectual brand for you. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it started kind of earlier in my banking days. You know, at a big bank, it was all about numbers and making decisions based on data-driven metrics. But from my personality standpoint, it's because I'm very risk adverse. And so for me, like, I can't make a decision unless I know it's at least 80% the right one, you know, or I know 80% of the way that it's the right one. So I try to collect information from every source that I can and just kind of let the decision be made for me. And for my clients, because a lot of times they're kind of trying to strike this balance as well, like the SS girls were mentioning, that you have these great ideas, you have this kind of feeling, this emotion, like you're emotionally connected to your brand, but how do you get it out there in a way that's going to resonate, you know? And there's certain metrics you can look at and certain ways that you can kind of put data behind it to give you a sense of, okay, here's what I need to do, and here's the strategy, here's the path, and I feel good about it, so let's get started. So that's the number one reason why I feel like I'm connected to number two, is because of risk aversion.
Yeah. So I know that you're currently working on brand, you're helping your clients so much, but that piece of really showing how important research is and the data and the metrics in what you do is going to be, you know, and showing clients that this is what. And I feel the testimonials that you gathered, you know, for the piece that I'm working on for you, it highlights, you know, that exact point too. For these companies, that piece, they have to see the proof, right?
Yeah, and I think it kind of also supports the first category, empowering. You know, making confident decisions can be very empowering for someone who's having to make thousands of decisions every day. Not every day, but you know what I mean. And it's a multitude of decisions, and it just can it brings calm when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah. So for those of you in the audience, two brands, you know, you're being analytical and practical, and that's how you prove your value and prove your worth, is through your research and through your stats and your numbers and such. And you don't need to necessarily worry about being super emotive or like I guess most of us are, especially as women. Okay, number three. We have quite a few number threes, and I'm not surprised. Number threes, I'm a number three. I think that's my main personality. These are original brands. So original brands are curators and creators. So we have a point of view that's very unique to us, and that is our uniqueness, right? So typically artists, designers, so it makes sense, Monica and Fanny, and Marisa too, you know, with what you do and your beautiful, you know, you and your husband's beautiful ring designs. So we are all about creating and curating, and that often I think about that piece of personality, right? Because I'm so into helping, guiding, and strategy, and I forget that the design piece is really part of a really important part of what makes me unique. So I could talk a little bit about how you use the original brand for what you do, because, for example, I met you, we've known each other for years, but I didn't meet you until you were showing at Art Basel in Miami a couple years ago. Yeah, so that's Art Basel is a great example of an original brand, because they bring all of these artists together, and it's all about creativity and curation of that creativity.
Yeah, it's actually true. And the way that I found you, Erika, and I think I've told you this story before, is that I was, as I said before, I was doing a rebrand. And I was feeling like just very lost and confused about what I wanted to do, like who my ideal client was and how I was going to take like this whole body of work and put it out in the world. And I actually was just doing research because even though I am more of a number three, I'm a lawyer, by training. So I am very like facts driven and I like numbers. The left side and the right side of my brain are constantly fighting over like who's going to get the more attention. And I was researching other websites and I actually saw that a lot of the sites that I liked had you in common as their designer. So it was like a no-brainer for me to reach out to you. And interesting to what you were saying before about the hire versus like the hire clients and the inspire clients. I feel like I'm constantly thinking about that and how I can share my voice online, whether it's on my website or my Instagram or Twitter or wherever I am that I'm trying to reach out to people and speak out to people. And I'm constantly thinking about that basically. And like, how do I reach my ideal clients and like, who do I want to work with? And all the while trying to spend the majority of my time actually creating the work. So it's a bit of a struggle for me in terms of the time that I have, because there's so much that I want to think about in terms of how I portray myself and my brand. But yes, as you said, we met at Basel Week, now in 2019, which feels like a lifetime at this point. And I love that event because, as you said, like it just brings together so many different like-minded people from different areas and from different backgrounds, not just there for the art, but for the networking. And of course, the art is the backbone of it. I was so happy that I was finally able to meet you. But in terms of myself, like, as you know, those are always the things that I'm thinking about, and who I want to reach, who I want to work with, who like my dream clients are, and who would be somebody that I would love to make art for and collaborate with, and work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And your Instagram is all about art. It's about process. So this is how you share with the world that you're an original brand, you're a creator. And even when you were doing photography, obviously you had a unique point of view, all your own. And so
right. I also want to share really what I've learned along the way, because I do have sort of a unique story in that I wasn't even working as an artist. It was more of like a hobby. And I use that part of myself to tell my story. But I really just want to focus on who I am now and what I'm doing and why it matters. And, with boldness of color and in terms of like, Fanny, I'm a big fan of your IG. I'm always, because I love interior design and I'm always thinking about, and I work with a lot of interior designers too. With how I can envision, like I love the way that a designer can like walk into a space and it's like a blank, empty room, and then just make it their own, and how art fits into that, and it being so subjective and different personalities and who to reach out to. So, it's like there are a lot of moving parts when you're in this original brands, but at the core is like staying true to my work and who I am, and just making the work for me first and foremost, because and thinking and then thinking about how it will resonate with potential clients and customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key part of being an original brand is not worrying what everyone else is doing,
right?
And you just do,
which is very hard. It's hard because it's very hard to not be worried about what other people are doing. It's really like a muscle that you have to train to not, and I really don't like when people like, stay in their own lane, because I do feel that you have to take risks. And at some point, smart risks, obviously, but at some point it's all a risk, right? Like you have to try different things and reach out to different people and try, for me as an artist, like just trying to get my work in front of as many people as possible. And sometimes that means doing things that make me a little bit uncomfortable in terms of reaching out to people and sharing things. But it's also like necessary. So I those are things that I'm trying to balance those out with myself.
Yeah, and with original brands, we've talked about the original brand, the intellectual brand, and the guide brand so far. This group is what I call the stages. So for those of us who fall within these three, we are very information oriented, right? So it's about sharing information we know, or maybe taking information and curating and creating from that, or using information as our research and our numbers and our facts. The first three brand personalities. Let's get into the next one. If you have most of your adjectives circled in group number 4, brand. And those of us who just joined us, you can take this brand personality quiz. It's on my website. I dropped that link at the top of the chat. It's erikabrechtel.com/brand-personality, excuse me. And that's where you can find the quiz. You can also find information on these 12 personality types that we're talking about, so you can kind of follow along. I see Jessica took it, and she's a 3, a 5, and a 7. Fabulous. Another creator. Okay, so we're going to get into the next 3. So the next one is the idealist. This is number 4. So I always say that idealists are like the Audrey Hepburns of the world, right? Like you're just full of light and positivity and belief in others. Very lucky that I have a daughter who's very much an idealist brand. You guys saw the email that she sent me yesterday. Hearts and rainbows and just positivity. I know, I just love her to bits and pieces for that. But she's very much an idealist brand, and really good at bringing the light and the cheer, right? So if you have an idealist brand on your team or a personality, they're the cheerleaders. They're not the ones that you're going to go to talk smack about somebody or gossip about someone. They're the ones that are going to be like, oh, he's probably having a day. And so we love our idealist brands for that light, right? And a good example I always like to bring is like Kate Hudson is a good example of it. It's just she keeps it light, right? If you think about her athletic brand, Fabletics, which is very much positivity, light for everybody, versus Lululemon, which is very much like an achiever, right? It's like a higher end achiever, more elitist type of brand. That's a good example of an idealist brand. And so I saw that Janet with Jelly Pop, I think, is a great example for an idealist brand. And maybe you can talk a little bit about how you use that concept of belief and positivity in your branding.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of a 4, 10, and 11 as well. Do you want me to it kind of combines? Did you want me to just talk about it now?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, 4, 10, and 11 combination. Should I talk about Evolution Design Lab too, which is our parent company that Jelly Pop is under. So we had to do branding for both, and it's an extension of each other. So like Erika said, there's times when branding, you don't really care for it as much anymore. The company, if you do the same thing over and over for years, which I've done for, I feel like almost 28 years of my life, since I started very young in the industry. If you count from when I actually started, it's been 36 years. So how can we constantly design shoes? By the way, we're a footwear company. We do women's shoes and girls' shoes and toddler. So designing every season, doing trend reports every season is not that exciting. Honestly, it's the same cycle over and over. The Western style, the modern style. So a lot of things in number 4, the idealist, is about other things that inspire me, which is helping women. So 10 years ago, we started Women in the Footwear Industry because growing up in the industry, I was always around men. I was 1 or 2 of the 10 people in the room, and men were buying shoes and men were selling shoes. And how odd is that when women are the end consumer? So there were very few women in the industry, and around 2009, we founded this that woman in the footwear industry, and there were only a few people in it. Now there's over thousands of people within the US that are a part of this group. And it's to help others, help other women, educate, mentor them to rise up, to not be afraid to speak up. Today, we have mostly women buyers and mostly women sales reps, which is amazing. And I'm constantly thinking, what can we do next? We have WYD community, which Erika also helped with, where we're helping Gen Zers, and we donate constantly to a bunch of different organizations like Union Rescue Mission, Souls for Souls, 210 Foundation, and we're just constantly thinking, because this is what inspires me to move on, is year in, year out, is what can we do for other people? And we've extended that into our branding, because even though it comes naturally to us, Erika brought to light that this is very special. Let's bring this and show that we care about women, which is why we launched on Women International Day. Let's show that you care about girls. So our brand is just very loving, caring, hopeful, and positive. And at the gala last Friday, Erika had organized for a bunch of girls. We try to just impact girls on all levels, whether we're teaching them about entrepreneurship, design, which is what we do, what skills you need to have when you're designing. So yeah, that's what we pretty much incorporate in here, where it's about positivity, generosity, uplifting others, and being hopeful about our future and for our future generations.
Belief in others. And I love that about not only you as the CEO and founder and the spearhead of your team, because that's how you're all about mentorship. That has a lot to do with that 11 brand.
Yeah.
But with the number 4, the idealist, your and Jelly Pop, of course, it's light, it's happy, it's friendly. You can see that in everything that you're doing, you're putting out there, and even the models that you're using. So it's meant to be sort of like for everybody, right?
Right. Exactly.
Right. I love that about it. Well, thank you so much. So for those of you who are number 4, you're idealists, internal optimists, and it's all about, being positive and believing, right? And it's really about that belief in others and in this, and whatever idea, the idealist being like whatever idea that it is that you have about the world or about the people around you, about your business. All right, so we're moving on to number 5. So those of you who circled most adjectives in the number 5 group are what I consider the innovators. And so innovators are well, to bring him up again, like the Elon Musks of the world, right? They're ready to take a risk on their ideas. They have maybe some crazy ideas, but and they're always willing to just go out there and prove it. Like, hey, you know what? I have this idea, and they're not afraid to do that. And in that way, they're also really resilient. They're always kind of thinking outside of the box. And if you have an innovator, sometimes it's better to let them go off and do their thing and maybe check in with them every once in a while, and try not to micromanage them, because that's like kryptonite to them. So keep that in mind. I think Fanny is a great example as an innovator brand. I've known Fanny for a long time, and she's always trying to think of new ways and new ideas to kind of push it to the next level. I know she's very humble and modest about it, but I would encourage Fanny, if you want to talk a little bit about that. I would say Home on the Runway is a great example, because you were one of the first, as I said, Instagram accounts to really curate those beautiful interiors. But is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of you being an innovator brand?
Oh God, I don't know where to start. I think that's my biggest problem, is the ideas just always are pouring in. I think part of what, working with you is like reeling me in and kind of bringing it all together and helping me define that as a brand, and then having the ability to kind of go in any direction. Home on the Runway was interesting. I mean, everybody was still doing blogs back then. And, every designer who kind of wanted to have a voice really started a blog. I don't like talking much. So I guess I was also kind of scared of words. I was more of a visual person. So I kind of decided, to look around at like what other social outlets there were. And at the time, Instagram was kind of more, on a personal level. People were sharing pictures of, what they ate. And I guess they still do, but their kids and their dog and, and it really wasn't something that brands were using, but it resonated with me because it was visual. So I think my journey to speak up started probably all the way back then, and just a little slow. But this was kind of my way of making myself visible without being visible at all. And I saw it as an opportunity to try something that all the other designers weren't doing, because anybody who wanted to, be a designer or decorator, the way to do it was how everyone else was doing it. Start a blog. And I found that the challenge with that also was that it was challenging because everybody was just using the same content over and over again. It was just how they curated it, or how they labeled their article for that week or that month. Whereas with Instagram, I had this, the ability to take my own photos and tell my own story from a design perspective. So that's kind of how I started. I mean, it also was encouraged from the fact that I'm a New Yorker stuck in Baltimore. And I think I was just challenged with this idea that, you don't always get to, you're really not limited by your geographic location anymore of who and where you reach. And Instagram kind of gave me that outlet. So I just started. I had no idea what I was doing. And before I knew it, it just blew up to the point where I got, sponsored by huge brands. I mean, because of where Home on the Runway started, which it was like, this idea of home inspired by fashion. I mean, I was invited to fashion shows. Like I was in,
we're with you. That was so much fun.
So yeah, I got lots of opportunities doing that. And then slowly, and then of course, Instagram went and changed the algorithm. And at that point, and just an interesting fact, speaking of numbers, when I started on Instagram, I think it was probably about 7 years old. If you searched hashtag interior design, I think there were 300,000 photos. Go on now, and I'm sure you're at like, God knows, 200 million. I have no idea, but that's kind of how I started. And then again, eventually, I think what happened was, it used to be that when I would post a photo, there was the reaction would be like, oh, it's such a home on the runway photo. People kind of knew who I was. And then slowly, I mean, every designer kind of transitioned into Instagram. And again, it was the same thing. It was a place where everyone was sharing the same content. So, you repost what I post, and she's reposting what she posted, and we're all posting the same stuff. And then it just got boring. So I've kind of I stopped, obviously, Instagram itself, with the algorithm changing, everything became a little bit more difficult, and it became more about the numbers, and it became about, what I was doing. And at that point, everyone else was doing it. So that's where that was where it was like, okay, what's next? So I've been working on the what's next before anybody else does.
Yes. I'm helping you with that piece as well.
Right.
And I mean, a big part of your brand, obviously, is you're an original brand too, because you are a designer. But innovator brands out there, and Jeanette, your daughter, is definitely, Kathleen, she's definitely an innovative brand. I remember when she was in the brand workshop that we did a few years back, I don't know, three years ago, I guess. And she's like that too. She's got a ton of ideas, right? And so for all of the innovative brands out there, it's it's also about executing your ideas, right? And actually seeing them finished before you move on to the next one, which I think is a challenge. But for innovator brands out there, you are all about new ideas and being inventive and being bold and really taking risks and trying them out and just seeing how it goes. And Heather, you mentioned earlier that you are risk adverse. So this is definitely would not be your brand personality. That's okay, right? I'm not an innovator either. And it's totally okay. But again, it's all about just really kind of owning who you are. Oh, what is that, Marisa? Oh, is it one of Fanny's images?
I'm not taking texts. I'm scrolling through her Instagram while she's talking to hear. She loves black and white, but these are all
Yeah.
Did you actually do a lot of these rooms?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did you actually do a lot of these rooms?
Well, there's and if you actually scroll all the way back, you'll kind of see how I transition. That's not my work. No, I try to credit wherever I can, but sometimes we don't know where the photos actually came from. But you'll see, even as, I don't know, I was on Instagram pretty with a strong presence for maybe about 2 years. And even during that time, I kept evolving from, really doing, whether it was my own photography or my own work, other, I think I love sharing other people's work.
Style. Yeah, whether you did it or not, you really have a signature style and a look at things that appeal to you. It's beautiful.
And you had an online magazine back when
I did. We had what I called like a little blogazine at one point where I really I took conceptual ideas from fashion, and then did our own photo shoots. Erika and I had worked on a few together where it was really about telling a story. So for me, I think it's all always been about telling a story, and I just enjoy every way possible of doing that. I do love getting to the core of, the message, the experience, and then being able to tell that on a visual capacity.
And it's great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So number 6, so we're only halfway through. So I think looking at our time, we got to power through. Hopefully, Anu, it's okay if we can go past our time, if all of you can stay on a little bit longer. Number 6 is Explorer brand. This one I love Explorer brand because they're all about sort of this sense of adventure and this journey and this discovery, right? So good examples of Explorer brands are, like Range Rover, Patagonia, right? So it's all about like taking people on this discovery, this journey of discovery. And again, so the idealist, the innovator, and the explorer, 4, 5, and 6, you are all what I call your idea motivated, right? So you're optimist, you have a certain idea about something, and it's kind of, that is what your brand is centered around. It's the idea of something. So for idealists, it's maybe the idea and the belief that you have of people. For innovators, it's your ideas and being inventive and really testing those ideas out. And for explorers, it's all, like I said, what is that destination, that idea of a destination and how you can pull people to that destination. And I know that this is a huge brand personality that we've included in the SS Beauty brand. And so I'd love for you to talk about how you have used the Explorer brand in SS Beauty and maybe in your own life too, how you use that.
Yeah, it's funny because I think prior to taking this brand personality test, I could have sworn I was every other brand. I'm like, oh, I'm definitely this, I'm definitely that. And you're like, nope, you're pretty much an explorer. I'm like, okay. So it kind of makes sense that it naturally extends to the brand, I think. And if you kind of go back, and I'm just thinking about it as you're talking, I was born in New York, I think, which naturally makes me very adventurous and an explorer. But, from when I was 2 years old till about when I was 5, I lived in Turkey with my grandparents. And I was sent there to really learn the language and the culture almost every summer until I went to college. And so in retrospect, it's almost like I was trained to be, an explorer. And so when we were talking a lot about what is our brand about? Of course, it's about give back. It's about creating products that are good for you, that make people happy. But the storytelling aspect and the product aspect really came through, like vis-a-vis, you know, our adventures, whether it's the trips that we went on, whether it's the conversations that we had, you know, with our grandparents about, you know, our traditions, our cultures. I mean, so much so that you ended up, Erika, coining our motto, or whatever you want to call it, organic beauty rooted in tradition. And I think it was then we were like, oh my gosh, yes, every product that we talked about, every almost vertical and value in our brand has stemmed from sort of, you know, our traditions and our cultures. And so it's really cool to be able to sort of, you know, talk about that as a part of our brand. I mean, our first product is colonia, and it's a tradition of mine growing up that I used, you know, in Turkey. And of course, you know, in America, we brought it here too. And so I think for us, we use Explorer as a way to really communicate sort of, you know, new ways of doing things that our grandparents did and that a lot of cultures did around the world. Another product that we worked on was inspired by a trip to Japan. You know, we went to Kyoto and we were in an onsen. And so we use sort of that, like, you know, our brand personalities to really talk about the products that we want to share with the world, talk about sort of these little beauty secrets that we sort of, you know, found, whether it was in our grandma's, you know, kitchen, or, you know, on a trip to South Africa. And so it's sort of a storytelling technique, but it's also a product development technique that we sort of fuse with, you know, I'm a chemist as well, but I'm definitely a chemist in a very complementary way to Amanda. We were even talking about it the other day. I'm like, you know, my favorite chemistry class other than organic was like the philosophy of science of chemistry. And she's like, what? And so it's very much more, we like to call it like, you know, big picture, very imaginative. I'm usually a little out there, you know, with, you know, some of the products that we want to create and some of the visions that I have. And I just feel like it's a natural extension of who I am and who we are. And we sort of use it to tell the story about our product and our brand.
Yeah, and I think you also spark curiosity with it. So if and you launched a whole collection based off a destination collection.
And it's just,
right. And so for those of you who are just joining us, SS Beauty, they started with their first product in the pandemic because it's very much needed, but they do luxury, organic, all natural aging sanitizer. And so the destination collection is taking sense of different destinations. And since we can't travel at the moment, it's kind of that idea that you can bring it to a little escape to yourself, right? So the one that got featured in Vogue was the Paris scent, and that has lavender in it. And so again, it's you're invoking that sense of curiosity, that sense of discovery and adventure, even through your product itself, right? By allowing people to kind of travel to a destination when they're not able to do that physically. Yeah, exactly. So I think you guys are a great example of, you know, we incorporate a lot of the Explorer brand in everything that we do, because it is about those traditions. It's about people wanting to learn more about the rituals, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Great. All right. Thank you. Okay. So those were like I said, the idea-oriented optimist brands. Now we're getting into the next three, which are the catalysts. These are action-oriented brands. So I hope that all of you can say, I know we're going over our time. If any of you have to leave, I totally understand. But if you can stick around so we can get through the next six, that would be fantastic. So the next one, number 7. So those of you circled 7s on your brand personality quiz, you are the powerhouses. And I always like to say you are the Beyoncés of the world. You know, it's like if Beyoncé steps into a room, you're like, I don't care what she's selling, right? It's like you exude the confidence that we all wish we had, but in that way you make fantastic leaders, right? So Beyoncé is a good example of a powerhouse brand. Marisa, I know that you said, I mean, I see you as a powerhouse. So I hope that maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
I may be that. I don't know if my brand necessarily speaks that. It's more about love and romance and beauty. But, well, I can think about how maybe I run my company or how I decided to even start my company. I mean, confidence takes a long time and a lot of work and a good amount of therapy. So we'll put that aside for a minute. No, but I think that, when you gain experience, you gain confidence because then you're pretty well able to kind of know you're making the right decisions. Unless, like Heather, you want to be, I wrote this down, that you will move forward if you have 80% of the right decision based on data. Now, that was really amazing to me. First of all, I don't even know if I could find 80% of the data that I need to make a decision, but I was thinking that that's fascinating that she operates that way, and that right brain, left brain combination, which is just rare and spectacular. I often will go by my gut instinct, and if 80% of me says go for it, I will, and if 80% of me says don't even think about it or whatever the decision, I won't. But and that takes confidence in itself, just to be able to listen to your own heart when it comes to making decisions and really follow your gut, which I think all of us can. Including Monica would say, yeah, well, when I worked against my gut instinct, it was the wrong decision. It always turned out to not be right. As far as courage, I've always been fearless. My mother, I too am from Los Angeles, and my mother used to joke that she would take me on the Matterhorn when I was 3 years old, and she thought I was going to cry, and I was like, yeah, more. And I'm still like that, at the Matterhorn at Disneyland. It's a scary ride for a 3-year-old, so I was always very courageous that way. And I have to tell you something. Speaking of courage, it really grates on me when somebody operates out of fear. I think it's a real sabotage to any business and your life. Like I have a woman who works with me, and she is amazing in all ways. I couldn't ask for anybody more amazing, but every once in a while she'll make a decision based that can come from a fear-based concern, and I try to raise her out of that. I don't think that fear is a great place to make a decision from. If that makes any sense, and if I say something that doesn't make sense, I want everybody to chime in. And
absolutely, and I think that's very much part of why I think I think, as you said, maybe your engagement brand necessarily powerhouse. That's not what you're exuding out there in the world. You yourself as a personal brand are very much about being a powerhouse. You are leading confidently, like you said, not from fear, but because you have confidence in you. It's really important to you as a team builder.
I have a lot of confidence in my team.
You empower them too to make decisions, and that's a really big part of being that powerhouse brand, being that leader.
Well, I do feel very, I don't shun from being a powerful leader, or I think it's just my personality. I think that I do have a really strong kind of overt type of personality, and I'm a perfectionist and I want things to be just right. I don't nag on others for not being as perfect, but I think that this is, competitive, decisive, bold. I'll tell you one thing, I make decisions immediately. I do not waver. And sometimes I'll get customers who are like taking forever and ever. And I know like some minds that are analytical will take a long time. I am like a snap decision maker usually, unless I really have to reflect upon something and consider a lot of other aspects. I'm a pretty quick decision maker, and bold. I can't really deny that, although I don't think that's very flattering to myself. Definitely bold, and I don't step away from anything. But I do have to tell you, competitive. I always say I'm not competitive within my arena. I'm not competitive as long as I'm number one, and that is. I will look at that.
Like a powerhouse brand to me.
I look at some of my other like direct competitors to my brand, right? And I'm like, well, I have a better location they do, and I have a better store than they do, and I have more Google reviews, so I think that means I'm probably doing more business than they are. And then I call like my diamond concerns or my diamond tears. are you selling this person? How much did they buy? What did they buy? I'll be like terrible. Like I'm really like into it. But I also, and then I get like furious because a lot of them have more Instagram followers than mine. And so that's like a real bone of contention because I think like I'm number one, but then they have more followers. And now and that's something that, I have begged to buy, borrow, and steal, and my entire team will not allow me to purchase a follower, and they think it's a really bad strategy. So I have the real deal, but in that way, it's always been a bone of contention because like I'm not the top, but and I've been around longer. That's another thing. It's kind of insulting because I've been around longer than they have. But additionally, I think it's that. I think I've been more established for a longer period of time because there were a lot of other competitors when I started my company in 2002. And a lot of those, first of all, all of those are not even in the running anymore. If they're even still here, they're not even in the running. Or some of them have closed their stores and they've just gone online and that's it. And people don't buy expensive diamond rings online, contrary to popular belief. And, but anyhow, so, I might have more customers, but as far as my management style, I think confidence is something that you build by becoming more and more secure over the years. And I'm pretty old, so that I've had a lot more years than most of this panel or all of this panel to become more into my own and work on myself as far as what I would need to really be confident or feel the confidence in my decision. But I am very courageous. Nothing will scare me to take a leap on as long as I feel like it is the right decision. I step foot if I don't think it's the right decision, but the minute I see it, I go for it.
And I think you're a great example to use here because as a founder, you can have a different personality than your brand, right? Because you understand that there's a separation there, but a lot of your brand is who you are too. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that too, that you don't, a lot of us, we are our brands and that's totally okay. But if you have a brand that maybe your personality is slightly different from them, that's okay.
There are some other things like trustworthy, stable, loyal. I would say that all of my team and I communicate that, and we are, and that's important, and uplifting and hopeful and generous. We really are generous with our customers, and we try to be uplifting and hopeful, and we're coming in at the beginning of relationships and marriages, and we try to be, again, number 5, forward thinking, trend setting. I have to be the first we are the first to make everything, and then my competitors pull from my site and then they make it, but we are the trendsetter in that regard. And actually it's my customer base who's the trendsetters. And then we try to be 6, adventurous, imaginative, curious. There's so many words here that I can say identify with my brand, but my brand may not appear to be competitive or courageous or confident, but the people behind the brand are clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not me, a lot of them. My husband,
absolutely.
My manager.
Yeah, and for all of you powerhouse brands out there, like I said, it's all about exuding that confidence and that leadership and really kind of taking the helm. And you attract your audience to you by being that way and exuding that in all of your touch points, which are your experiences that you're creating for your clients or your customers. Your social media, your website is really kind of showing the boldness of your ideas and going out there and constantly, just saying what your plan is and saying what you're about and being confident about it. We don't see Beyonce being insecure very often. Powerhouse brand. Another example would be like Williams is definitely a powerhouse. She's all about Nike, right? Just do it. Just do it.
She's like physical power too. I mean, she has an incredible amount of physical power as well.
Yes.
As her personality.
Right. And it looks so, I know that we're over our time, but I want to get through all of these for all of you who have hung on for as long. So I'm going to quickly go through these, and we lost Brianna, which I was bummed about because I wanted her to talk about the Achiever brand, which is number 8. So if you've circled most adjectives in the and number 8, that is the Achiever brand. I am also an achiever. We tend to be a little perfectionistic, I'll admit, we like to work hard. We love checklists. We love checking things off the box, and also feeling like we're accomplishing something, right? And so a lot of times you'll find with what you're putting out in the world, you're talking about what you've accomplished, and you're talking about what you're going to do. And you're not, powerhouses like to be in the limelight, right? More so than achievers. Achievers are fine just kind of quietly working behind the scenes and getting their stuff done. But a lot of achiever brands, they are very much about having high standards for themselves. And they are kind of the 1%, I don't know, but we've worked hard to be in this particular group. And if you work hard too, you can be part of our group, right? So Ivy League schools, luxury car brands, high fashion brands are all really good examples of achiever brands. So it's sort of like you can be a part of our club if you work hard enough, right? Or they're definitely not the idealist brands that are more like for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to keep going through the rest of them for those of you who have hung on with us for this long. So number 9, the 9s are rebels. So rebel brands are the questioners and the challengers, and they really love to, and sometimes they can be super edgy as well. But rebel brands are all about, not taking what's told to them as just sort of the truth and the facts. And so they really are kind of the devil's advocates. Some great examples of rebel brands and are, for example, Miley Cyrus, right? So she's really kind of in her power when she is a rebel brand, right? When she is the most rebellious, she is really who she is. Steve Jobs looks like when they question sort of what everyone else is doing, and they want to question for the sake of making it better. I could people in my life rebel brands. So as a rebel brand, it is about the questioning, it is about the challenge, it is about making something better for those of you out there who are rebel brands. So those 3, 7, 8, and 9, powerhouse, achievers, rebels, as I said, you are the catalyst. You are very action-oriented brands. So that can come through in your touch points, in all of your materials that you're showing. Now, the last 3 are the 10, 11, and 12s. Number 10s, you are upholder brands. So these are trustworthy, consistent. You're all about being dependable. You're sort of no frills. A lot of service-oriented brands tend to be trust brands or upholder brands. And it's very about as consistent as possible. Any Starbucks you go to in the world, you walk in, you know what to expect, right? Target, same thing. You know exactly. It's not super exciting or innovative, but it's safe. It feels safe because we know what to expect. And so this is how upholder brands, they attract the right people to them by being really consistent, dependable, reliable, and not too fancy or frills and emotive, right? Or trying to oversell themselves. They never try to oversell themselves. So as upholder brands, it's all about building the trust. And a lot of times, that can even come through sharing your process with people and being really transparent of where people are within the process. Again, it's all about making your audience or your customer, your client feel very comfortable with your brand, building that trust. The number 11, we have, I think everybody here has some 11 in them, right? These are the nurturers. So nurturer brands are kind of like the mother hens. We love to, a lot of women, we're women. So we tend to be nurturers, and we're very supportive and empathetic, and we love making people feel good. We love to build relationships. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why all of you are here today. And we're all about sort of just, I think a great example of a nurture brand, well, obviously, a lot of nonprofits are nurture brands, but even the brand under which we are having this whole conference today, the Amplifying Her Voice brand, the State of Women and Women Investing in Women, it's all about how do we invest in each other and how do we invest in each other. And so as we go out into the world as nurture brands, it's very much about connection, engagement, relationships, right? Empowering, support. Really what you're all about. And so like even with SS Beauty, you have a lot of nurture in you because you're about the better good of all, right? And so clean beauty for the planet and clean beauty for people, and very much about bringing people together under that umbrella. Okay, so last one, the number 12s. You, all of you who have circled most in the number 12 brand, I love you all because I am so not this. I am not funny, but the entertainer brands.
That's not true. You are very
it's not my brand. It's not my brand, and I'm okay with that.
You are many things.
Thank you. Entertainer brands. I always think of Ryan as a fabulous example as an entertainer brand. He is so good at it, right? And he really uses his humor and sort of keeping it light to communicate what his brand is about and really attract the right audience to his brand. So, you know, when he took over Aviation Gin, now he's doing all the Mint Mobile, and he's very successful with that, and he's most successful. And I like to use the example of he's got that fake feud with Hugh Jackman, and so I think they did some commercials for each other. And Ryan Reynolds did a really funny one for Hugh Jackman's coffee company, very much Ryan Reynolds. And then Hugh, they tried to do one where Hugh was a total jerk. And it was so not his brand. And so it didn't work, right? Because Hugh Jackman would be a number 4. He would be an idealist brand. He's very happy. He's sort of like, everybody loves him, right? He's very positive. And so when he tried to be something he wasn't, it kind of fell flat. So all of you entertainer brands out there, I've got a couple of clients who are, I've got one doctor, Amanda and Seda, you know, Nancy MD. She's kind of quirky, and she uses that, and she uses that humor to kind of disarm people, right? And so you're not necessarily trying to maybe solve all the world's problems as an entertainer, but you like to, you know, keep it light and make sure that we can all laugh at ourselves and not take ourselves too seriously. And that is what makes you unique and how you attract the right audience to you. So I want to quickly give you these SEO tips while I have you here, because I think this is really important. You maybe, if you've taken the brand quiz, I hope you have. I dropped that link in the chat. You've kind of identified who you are as a brand personality. Now we've all been talking about how we use it, right? And really own it. Now let's talk about like amplifying it. So before we do that though, I want to just quickly show you, because I can't show you a slide. I'm going to hold this piece of paper up. One of the exercises that I would definitely recommend is once you figure out what your brand personalities are. So we all have a few. I have 3. This is what I did. I just created a column, just a 3-column chart for myself. And I basically listed for myself the type of content that I felt falls within each of my brand personalities, okay? So, for example, the first column, original brand, right?
What?
I have creativity and style.
Creativity and style.
Well, that's because I'm an original brand, right? So I'm a creator. And so anything that revolves for me, travel, work, I have that all listed under my original brand. Ever talking about being a mom or owning a business or self-care or leadership, that falls into my sort of woman, female founder sort of achiever brand, right? So I'm talking about the things that I'm accomplishing or the things that I'm doing in my life. And if I'm ever talking about strategy, this is my guide brand. So if I'm giving tips or coaching or classes or talking about my clients, this is my guide brand. So really, I call it the personality pillars. So if you want to make columns for yourself on which, if you've got more than one, typically we do, and just think about the type of content that you might put out in the world that aligns with that particular personality. And it just helps to and you can only focus on those pieces that align with. I think as Amanda and Zed, it's similar. After we worked together, you created kind of a whole board of the different personalities, right? And how would you use those? Yeah, so that's a great exercise to do. And if you ever feel that maybe you are straying from who you are as a brand personality, I always tell everyone, do this audit for yourself. It's called the Know, Feel, Do test. And that is really looking at something like your website or like a brochure or maybe even like your social media account in full. What is the one thing that you want people to know? What's the one thing that you want people to feel? And what's the one thing you want people to do, right? So the one thing you want people to know is that what is that message that you want someone to come away with when they look at your Instagram account or when they look at your website? What is the whole point? Make sure that's really clear. We're all so inundated with overload information over these days. Make sure that that piece is really clear. What is the one thing you want people to know? The one thing you want people to feel all has to do with look and feel, right? So whether that's the way that these pieces are designed or the voice that you're using, or the that you're using, how do you want them to feel when they look? And you want it to be consistent, and consistency is super, super important. And then the last piece, what is the one thing that you want people to do? That's the call to action. So making sure that that is really clear as well. Like, are you always making it clear that the call to action should be to shop your particular product, right? If it's an e-commerce site, or to contact you if you're a service provider. What is the call to action that you want people to make, and make it really easy for them to find how to do that, right? So don't make it something that's at the bottom of the page and they're never going to find it. So those three pieces are extremely important. When we're talking about auditing, sure that you're being very clear with how you're using your voice. Okay, and then just quickly, as I said, I want to give some of these. Thank you all for staying on. I really appreciate it. Just some quick tips. So a lot of times, a lot of what we've been talking about is sort of social media or our Instagram or how we're putting ourselves out there. And I want to be very, very clear that a website is still extremely, extremely important. You need to have a website. You need to have a home base for your voice, because any SEO that is happening in those apps is only happening in those apps. And if those apps disappear one day, then that is all your content, that is all your followers, that's everything, right? So you don't actually own those followers and own the content when you're putting it on an app. So you've got to make sure that you have a website and duplicate as much as you can on your website. I think we heard on Friday with a session that, I should probably tell everybody about that. We do club sessions every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific. You can come find my club. I just got a club. It's called Women Brand Builders. So we do a session every Friday, 10 a.m. Come join us. And really this who most of you have gotten invitations from, etc. So she's going to be talking about cryptocurrency and investing in women on Friday. But on our session last Friday, we had a digital marketer who said that, why it's so critically important to have your own website is owning your content, but also the SEO piece, right? And getting that organic traffic to your website. And they do that through searching for you on Google. If you come up in Google search results, maybe through YouTube, maybe through Pinterest. But 79%, she said, of your customers come through on an organic search are the ones who are making purchases and staying as customers. So it's not so much the paid search, right? It's the organic search, because that feels more real and authentic to them. So SEO is extremely important, and you have to have your own website. You have to have a home base to direct your traffic. That is just the truth of it. And I think it's really unfortunate that we've become so IG obsessed in this world, spending their time, and nobody's owning any of it, right? No one owns their followers. So the website, make sure you've got your website. If you can, yes, Marisa.
I did want to interject. I always think that having good SEO and having people find your website organically is the most important, and I don't have stats on it. However, I recently found somebody mind-blowing to handle my Google Ads campaign, and it has driven my business very much up. Like January and February, I think I was up 40% over my pre-COVID months the previous year. So paid ads can work if you have a good person handling.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. But how are you going to have paid ads if you don't have a website, right? We got to drive.
Yeah, and you have to have a great website, and I'm sure all of you here do, and you all know Erika, but for any other listeners, to have Erika create that website would be the biggest coup that you could possibly have, because she's the only person I know that can take what you are as a brand and communicate that visually on a digital platform. And that was what I struggled with. So, and Erika would be the only person I could ever dream of recommending for that.
Thank you.
That's number one. Then drive traffic to your site.
Heather, did you have your hand raised? I saw you kind of do this. I thought I saw
no, I was just typing to Marisa to share her contact for Google Ads.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
really.
I have the man of the United States of America. That's what I have, and I
That's so good to know.
Incredible.
We're always looking for good people. Absolutely. Thank you. So, and I always tell, if you have a website, going, have a blog. And if you can blog, at least, I tell Seda and Menda this all the time on every one of our calls. Have you guys blogged lately? You want to blog at least twice a month. And this is because Google search engines fresh content. So if you design your site and then never touch it again, you're probably not going to rank as well unless you have fresh content on there. And so if you can blog at least twice a month, that's sort of like the minimum. I don't think I've blogged in the past month. But also when you're blogging, think about the keywords that you can use that people might search for to bring people to your site. It doesn't need to necessarily be just about your products or your services, right? So for example, I've had a blog for over 11 years. It's all on style. This is how I attracted my audience to me. And think about it just in terms of throwing out a big net to catch people. So fortunately, I've had a blog for a really long time. I get most of my traffic to my site, not for branding, but for interior design, for style, for all these other pieces that I've been blogging about for years. And I get most of my traffic from Pinterest and Google Images in that way. So blogs are super useful in terms of keeping your content fresh, getting you up there with SEO, and helping you use that voice. So a lot of the topics, like I said, all the topics that I'm blogging about are all related to my 3 personality types: the original, the guide, and the achiever. It's all falling within those pillars, as I mentioned, the personality pillars. And here's a great tip: when you upload images to your website, make sure you're using keywords and not just image9076.jpg, but you're actually putting the keywords of what's in the image, and that's going to help your searchability on Pinterest and Google Images. Another key point, I've got 3 really quick, is on social media, you want to have a hashtag strategy. So this is all about figuring out what your main 4 hashtags are going to be. One of them should be your company name. Actually, now that I think about it, I haven't been using my name. But what are you going to own, right? What do you want to own in the minds of your audience? And use those on every single post. And this is also building SEO. This is also within those particular apps, because you want to make sure that you're hyper consistent with those hashtags. So think of 4 to 5 maybe at most that you would put on every single post. And then think about maybe 3 or 4 that you might put on that particular post itself to help with the searchability. So utilizing your hashtag strategy is fantastic for consistency, amplifying your, being consistent with your voice, using your voice in a consistent way for everybody to find you. And speaking to that consistency, oh, sorry, Susan, did you have a question? You're on mute. You're on mute. Oh, shoot, we can't hear you.
There we go. She's checking it. On the bottom, click on the little microphone.
I can't. Oh, you're on mute. Oh,
yeah.
no.
Let's see if I can take a little picture and send it. I'm sure she knows this, otherwise she'd be doing it.
At the bottom, there's a little microphone. Okay. Maybe type in the chat what you wanted to say. I wanted to just make this point. When we're talking about consistency, it's really important for everyone to post consistently, right? So if you can post 4 times a week, schedule it out. What we use for SS Beauty, for example, we use
Instagram
on all social platforms, as many as you can. We use Loomly, LOOMLY. And it's a platform where you can schedule out your posts ahead of time. So we post 4 times a week. Instagram especially loves it when you're consistent with your posting. And again, you can put in all your hashtags at the bottom. Be consistent with it. And the great thing is too is that you can post on multiple platforms at the same time, so you don't need to worry about it. And that's the biggest, I think, block for a lot of brands that I work with is being consistent when it comes to your social media posting, right? Okay, here she is. Okay, so our way, but I'm so grateful for everybody.
Can I just, can you hear me now? It was something internally. I don't know what happened, but you were talking about hashtags, and I give my people a kind of like a barometer or like a system to do that. And I think that what I do with them is I have them kind of break it down to the main ones, like you said, of like who you are, what you do, but then really identifiable to each post so that it's kind of like automated. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. The consistency piece is huge. And kind of like we said, owning.
Yes.
We're going to own that. SS Beauty, for example, we use Colonia, we use natural beauty, we use sustainability, organic skincare. And so it's really just being as consistent as possible.
So you use the same hashtags for every single post?
Yeah, so at least the main like core hashtags, and then you can add like that relate to that particular post. Definitely. And also when I upload photos for them to Loomly, I'm also putting my keywords into the file names themselves, as I said. So we're not just uploading image 9056.jpg, we're actually renaming the file for the company name. That's hugely important. And the great thing about Loomly too is that you can also post to Google My Business, Marisa, which as a local brick and mortar business.
Every day. We do it every day.
Okay,
every
great.
day.
Perfect.
There's not a day that goes by that we do not make a post on Google My Business.
Great.
My competitors don't use that platform, and I think it's great. And it is astonishing, just for all of you to know, you get reports on how many people see those images. And sometimes when you're looking for them yourself, they're not that easy to find. But I get like thousands of people see it. Thousands. It's great.
Oh, that's great.
Loomly, Erika? I don't know that one. LOOMLY.
Yeah, Loomly. Yes, exactly. Okay, so if we only have a few people left, if anybody has any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the chat. I don't know if any of you ladies wanted to say anything else before we shut it down here that you wanted to say. Would feel free. Anything, any last words?
The only thing I want to add is that you and I are just so aligned. It's crazy how similar we guide and teach and show and create. Again, just the same but different. And I think, before I was a consultant, I had a very high-end, very visible global lifestyle brand that started out in the furniture, children's furniture genre. And I was a black swan in my industry. There was nobody doing what I did. And that led me to lots of press and TV and being on Oprah and everything else in between. And so I think when you were talking about, when you were just talking, I can't remember because there's so many great things in all 12 and I can't remember which it was. Maybe it was the Innovator or Standing Out. One of the women here, and I don't think she's here, it was Amanda. Amanda was the artist. Where's Monica? Okay, sorry. She said something about, feeling the competitor or feeling the competition and not being able to stand out. But what I often tell my clients is that there's only one you. You are you. And even though Marisa's a jeweler, there's 1,000 million gazillion jewelers. Fanny's a designer. I used to be a designer. It's really about that narrative and about that story and how you can stand out. And so this was really great, Erika. I think you're fabulous. So thank you for bringing me in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought that so fun about the brand personality quiz too,
Yeah.
is that your combo of personality traits are going to be unique to you, and how you use them is going to be totally unique. And as I mentioned, I've got 3 that I know is me, and I know when I'm veering off of that and not being authentic to it, and I know when I really am authentic to it and being in my power with it, and really able to give what I can in the best way possible when I am who I am. And, you know, answering, like I said, all of you, answering those 4 Ps, your people, your purpose, your position, your personality, really knowing those as your brand essentials is hugely important. Marisa, did you have anything that you wanted to say? I saw you raise your hand.
I wanted to say thank you. I also took in so much that I'm not going to remember it all. And I was trying to write as fast as I could, but I am not going to remember everything. And I was wondering, are we able to get a recorded piece of this so that I can listen to the whole thing again?
Yeah, so I can mention for you. And as I mentioned, I put in the chat, I put all of the brand personalities and kind of like how you can use it in a PDF if you go to that link in the chat. For all of you who are still on. Otherwise, thank you so much, ladies. I hope that you enjoyed this session. I really appreciate you hanging on. I know we went way over time, so I appreciate your time. Yes.
The customer, or not a customer, listen to me. There's a viewer, Jessica Dew. She's not on our panel. And she said, will everyone have access to this recording? And also she wanted to know how she's able to connect with us.
I told Jessica to go to Erika's Clubhouse on Fridays.
Oh, where? I don't even know about that. Where is that?
Okay, I have to go. I think you're all amazing and creative. You've all totally inspired me. I really appreciate all of you. Happy yesterday, Women's Day, because you're all badasses. Bye. I got to go.
Thank you. Bye, Erika.
Thank you so much. And I'm just dropping in the chat, the Clubhouse, 10 a.m. Fridays. Women Brand Builders, come find me. But thank you, ladies. Really appreciate it. I think we just leave. So
everything.
Thank you so much.
So long. Thank you.